Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. With those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by the senator from Greenbrier, and then please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the senator from Wetzel. Senator from Greenbrier.
Let us pray. Lord God, as we meet again today, we thank you for the beauty of this time of year as the grass is green, the trees are fully loaded, as spring storms come through and we see the beauty of rain, the warmth, and all there is. We ask for your wisdom as we continue to strive to meet the needs of our state. Lead us as we go through each moment, each day. Help us, we pray. This we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator. Senator from Wetzel.
Will the senators on the floor and our guests in the gallery please join us in the pledge to the great flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, Thursday, June 8th, 2017.
Senator from Mercer requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House amended and passed engrossed Senate Bill 1014 relating generally to the physician assistants.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the amendments to the House as they relate to Senate Bill 1016. The House made technical corrections only. 1014, sorry.
Good. Senator from Ohio moves that the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 1014. Is there discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. If not, all those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 23 yeas, 0 nays, 11 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further communications from the House?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 106 relating generally to the furlough of public employees during declared fiscal emergency, and has amended same and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Reports from select committees?
There are none.
Introduction of bills?
There are none.
Resolutions?
There are none.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent to introduce a resolution from the floor.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 103 by Senator Fern suspending the provisions of Joint Rule 3 relating to committees of conference and reports relative thereto.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution again.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 103 suspending the provisions of Joint Rule 3 relating to committees of conference and reports relative thereto.
Question for the Senate is adoption of resolution. Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator from Ohio yield?
Does the senator from Ohio yield? The senator does yield.
Yes.
Senator, What is the holdup as far as the conferees? It's being reported that nothing has gotten done for the last 3 days, and this is going to take us, I guess, until Monday. What seems to be the holdup? Because I know you're chairing that committee, so.
I think the major point of contention that the interested parties are trying to discuss and negotiate at this point is triggers related to the income tax reduction.
Yeah, my understanding is that the issue is not the triggers, it's the income tax reduction. So,
Well, you're asking me, that's my response. If you have a different opinion or understanding,
well,
then there's no need to ask me.
Okay, so has there been any presentation to the conference committee on these triggers?
There were two yesterday evening, one from the governor's office and one from the Senate Republican caucus.
And so what's the nature? They're just too complicated to get done in 3 days, or we?
Well, I think anytime you introduce a concept on triggers, it requires the governor's office and Department of Revenue to issue data and numbers related to how those would play out. And so some of it is waiting on the modeling to be done based on those triggers.
So beyond the triggers, are you pretty confident that we could have a vote, or at least the conference report will be prepared by Monday, where we wouldn't have to extend it again, that you're fairly confident that we'll have a conference report by Monday and then vote on it either Monday or Tuesday?
That would be the plan.
And you're pretty confident that we'll have that done?
That would be the plan.
I understand the plan. I'm asking of your confidence. Yes. Is that yes?
That would be the plan to have that accomplished by Monday or Tuesday.
By Monday, and a vote on Tuesday. Because people are getting very frustrated in the sense that we haven't even started on the budget yet. You know, everybody thinks we're talking about the budget. We haven't even gotten to that yet. And people are very frustrated. And you know that June 19th is another date in which the system, in which payroll and everything else starts triggering in. So we only have next week to get both this done and a budget done, or else we're going to have a lot of problems in the system. You're aware of that, correct?
I am, and I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Not the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 24 yeas, 0 nays, 10 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
Bills on third reading?
There are none.
Bills on second reading?
Senate Bill 1009, relating generally to tax procedures and administration.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting the consent the bill be deferred to the foot of bills on first reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Senate Bill 1013, the budget bill.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting the consent the bill lie over 1 day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Bills on first reading.
Engrossed House Bill 111, relating generally to tax procedures and administration. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Bills on first. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting the consent that the constitutional rule requiring bills be read on 3 separate days be suspended.
Senator from Ohio requests unanimous that the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be suspended, that the bill be read second and third time and placed upon its adoption. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 24 yeas, 0 nays, 10 absent and not voting, more than 4/5 of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the constitutional rule suspended. Clerk will read the bill a second time.
Engrossed House Bill 111 relating generally to tax procedures and administration. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed House Bill 111, third reading of the bill.
Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Just briefly, Mr. President, this is a bill that actually passed during the regular session, and actually in the House of Delegates there was a title amendment that was not made properly, so it was basically vetoed for that technical error. Just by way of reminder, this deals with the release of liens that are unenforceable. There's nothing in our code that allowed a tax commissioner to get rid of liens, so this does it. It kind of lines us up with federal practice in several states. I encourage passage.
Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 24 yeas, 0 nays, 10 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Is that introduction of guest? Further bills on first reading.
Senate Bill 1009 relating generally to tax procedures and administration.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill 1009 be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Senator from Ohio moves that Senate Bill 1009 be referred to Committee on Rules. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Further bills on first reading?
No, sir.
Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Ms. Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. The conferees have been meeting, as you well know, and we're trying to work diligently to get this thing passed. But I think there's a general misconception out there right now, and the senator from the 16th is very well pointed that out. You know, it seems to be that we're concentrating on putting together triggers that lead us into the next year's budget with some safeguards. And we're playing Russian roulette. We're just hoping that the trigger that we come up with, whether it be jobs, whether it be revenue, you know, how can we see into the future to put these things together? We're trying to come up with a trigger that safeguards us from not going over the fiscal cliff. And I just hope before we pull that trigger that there's not a bullet in that chamber that sends us over that cliff. And that's what we're scared to death of. So the misconception is that we're working on triggers to safeguard, you know, to alleviate that from happening. Why are we working on those triggers? Because everybody's afraid of eliminating the personal income tax. That's the crux of the problem that we're dealing with. You know, in my conversations with House Democrats, House Republicans, with our caucus, we want to ensure that no trigger is pulled before actually something is right. And this thing isn't right. It's not right. You know, we're going to continue to debate. We're going to cancel meetings. We're going to waste time. We're going to go back to our respective caucuses. I've got so many trigger options right now that I'm getting gun shy. I don't know what to do. You know, nothing's for certain. And the only thing is for certain that the personal income tax is the problem. That's the basis for what we're dealing with. And when you go back to the triggers, you know, we can get as many triggers as we think is going to be possible. Right now is not the right time. I think the governor very clearly pointed out in his State of the State, he'd like to reduce the personal income tax, but the time is not right. Let's get beyond this thing. We have worked this morning with several different groups. We have options that'll work. Let's get out of this crisis. Let's set back, take a step back, take a deep breath, Come back in, maybe have a special session on income tax reform. But now is not the right time. We're going to continue to extend, and we're not going to get anything done. The people out there are afraid of what's going to happen. We don't know whether we're going to have a budget or not. The crisis that looms in front of us is on the 19th day of this month, when it's the drop dead date, that we can no longer process payrolls, that the folks out there are really going to suffer. And as the governor mentioned, the patient's going to die on the table. Let's get beyond this hysteria. Let's get it done simply. We can get it done today. We can pass something, do the budget, and get out of town and go home, and everybody would be happy. Come back in another day and do the tax reform.
Senator from Monongalia.
Unanimous consent that the comments by the gentleman from the 13th District, senior senator from the 13th District, be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. The senator from Cabell County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hadn't intended to speak, but it's been weeks since I've said anything, and even longer since I've said anything that really mattered. So give me just a couple of minutes here. When I was in the 9th grade, Sister Ethel Rita was my algebra teacher. Her claim to fame is her brother, Chuck Halley, was the MVP of the Super Bowl. She was tougher than Chuck Halley. But anyway, I would be at the chalkboard, and her job would really be to sort of embarrass me because I was a mathlete, excelled at math. So she had this one exercise, and I'll never forget it. So, Wolfel, you're going to learn about what is incongruent, what are non sequiturs, and here's what we did. See if you can figure this out. I know you can follow me. She'd say, which of these do not belong? A, B, C, D, and E. All right, here we go. A, huge budget crisis, $350 million hole in the budget. B, opioid crisis, which is eviscerating our state. C, with the Trump budget, Medicaid cuts for 31% of our people are on Medicaid. That's 722,000 West Virginians. That's going to be block granted. And so what's going to happen there is these folks are going to go to the local ERs, and they're going to go to their local docs, and they've got no money, and they've got no insurance, and they've got no Medicaid, and we're going bankrupt health care. D, our government is getting ready to shut down in a couple of weeks. D, are you with me? We're going to figure out which one is incongruent, what the non sequitur is, what doesn't fit. E, tax cuts for people like me that have been blessed to have a good income. I just wrote my June 15th estimated payment, and a lot of you guys and ladies have too, or will in the next week. So you're going to cut my taxes and the taxes of many people in this room, which doesn't fit. And I think you can figure that out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks? Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by saying I appreciate comments of my good friend, the minority leader, and the colorful comments, my friend from Cabell. I just want to be real clear about a couple of things. It was mentioned that there's concern about going off a fiscal cliff, and certainly this tax reform proposal is something that has been initiated by the Senate Republicans, no question about it. And for that reason, there's nobody in this building that is more concerned about making a mistake as it pertains to tax reform as we are, because we're going to take ownership of the changes that are made. And certainly, attempting tax reform in a difficult financial situation maybe appears like it doesn't fit. But what we feel is that what we are doing is clearly not working. And if we don't take West Virginia in a new direction, then we're going to continue to go down this road year after year after year. And we've been very clear from the very beginning of this session, while there's been a lot of jumping around, jumping all over the place, different proposals, different plans, trust me, I'm frustrated too. But I think the leadership, the Senate President, and the leadership in the Senate have been very clear from the very beginning. We are not willing to just raise taxes on the people of West Virginia yet again. We have given two options. One, to reduce the size of government as our state reduces its size of population. Or 2, attempt tax reform to make substantive change in the direction of the future of West Virginia in order to not only change the direction, but also to avoid all those cuts that everyone said would be so terrible for our state. We've been very clear about those 2 options from day one, and that's still where we are today. We haven't changed from that. So while we've attempted to compromise and there's been a lot of changes in the plan, those have been in an effort to gain support from those who don't see things the same way that we do. So I just want to make that clear. You know, there is nobody more concerned than we are about not meeting our budgetary needs. And for that reason, that is the reason that we've continued to work tirelessly, day after day, hour after hour, to make this plan as perfect as it can be. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks, the senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I try hard not to get up and say anything, but when you hear something like that from my friend from Ohio County, I just have to get up. I mean, I think we're kind of living in a fantasy world. I mean, when my Republican friends, and you are my friends, I believe every one of you believe you're doing the right thing. But when you got in charge, this body had reduced taxes in this state by $500 million a year. After you got in charge, we had the energy glut, not your fault. I don't think we stepped up and did what we should have done in 2015. We could have stopped this crisis, but the downturn in the revenues was not your fault. But the governor cut almost another $500 million. So, Senator, we've cut the budget. We've cut taxes. And what do we have? A net loss of private unemployment. If I believed that you had a 50% chance of creating $240 million in revenues by cutting income taxes by 7%, I'd stand on this desk and promote it. I don't believe that. I'm a CPA, I'm an attorney, I've been in on billion-dollar deals, and I'm telling you, this is a bad idea. This is a gamble we don't want to take. But those cuts have been done. And you all have been in charge for 3 years with the mandate that you were going to cut further. Where are those cuts? Where are they? This is your 3rd session. I hate to tell you. In 2015, when I went to our then president and said, look, we've got a budget crisis, we need to fix it permanently and either do cuts or raise taxes, I was told we're going to cut the budget. Last year, and believe me, I know you're trying, we're going to cut the budget. We got to $36 million, and $20 million of them were one-time cuts, where we took money from accounts, swept accounts. I mean, we shake our head, but that's why we're where we're at. And I'm giving you approximate numbers, and maybe I'm off a little bit, but that's what the reality is. And I'm getting nervous. Is anybody else getting nervous? I mean, here we are in the second week of June. We've been down here. The Judiciary Committee accomplished some good things today, and I thank the chairman for getting them on the agenda. But what have we accomplished except sit in these seats and push this button a couple times and walking out of here? They do not want to address this income tax reduction now. Your colleagues from your party in the House do not want to address this income tax reduction. We ought to do it in a special session, as the minority leader suggested, so we can look at it comprehensively. Not do it in a crisis. There's an old saying, a crisis is the toolbox or is the engine of a tyrant. I can't remember the quote exactly, but what it really means is you can do stupid things in a crisis. And if we're forced to make a decision of shutting down this government or taking these income tax reductions, you may get your way. But that's not how it should be done. What we ought to realize in a democracy, the majority of both these houses do not agree with those reductions. We don't think they're going to take a new direction. We don't think they're going to create economic activity sufficient to give us a budget next year. We think we're going to be $240 million in the hole next year. I ask you, please, we've gone far enough. You've risked enough. It's time to drop it. It's time to get a budget. It's time to go home before we ruin this state. Thank you.
Further remarks, the senator from Logan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the comments by both or all of the senators from Harrison County, from Cabell County, and from Ohio County be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Thank you. Further remarks? Further remarks? He couldn't. The senior senator from the 15th.
Since we're playing broken records in here this morning, Mr. President, I figure I'd have my crack at it too. You know, speaking of the minority, I was in the minority when these tax decreases were taking place. In fact, it was the minority that was driving it. The sales tax on food, which was actually good for the people in West Virginia at that given point in time. Workers' comp. I love playing that record. It's one of my favorite ones. The sky was going to fall in West Virginia when we did workers' comp reform. It didn't fall, it got better. Mr. President, I get sick of hearing this. We got the lowest workforce participation rate. We're ranked 50th. As the governor says, our foot is in the gator's mouth. I don't care if we're in the minority on doing the income tax reform in West Virginia, because it's the right thing to do. It happened when I was in the minority for workers' comp. It happened for many of the other things that the minority actually was pushing the majority to do. We're continuing the path of changing the plight of every West Virginian. Not just the people that are sitting in this chamber, and not just the well-to-do. I can tell you right now, in my heart, I want to raise the tide for all West Virginians, and I have yet to see where these tax benefits benefited the wealthy any more than what it did the working man or the man that had little or less. We want to give them the opportunity in West Virginia. But what we've been doing in the past sure as heck hasn't worked. So if we're going to sit here and play this game, I want to make sure my voice is heard, because I believe my voice is for the people of West Virginia, all of them, and we're tired and sick and tired of being ranked 50th. We're going to make a difference, and we're going to do it together. Sometimes dragging us, kicking and screaming to the altar to make it happen. Thank you, Mr. President. I feel better.
Further discussion before I recognize the senator from Low. Further, other members desiring to speak? The senior senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. People are sick and tired in West Virginia, and they're sick and tired of being duped. I had a person that came up, a constituent, parishioner, that said to me, you know, John, what's going on in Charleston reminds me of my uncle. And my uncle used to always bring the little kids together when I was a little kid and tell us to bring our coins. And he'd say, and he'd hold up, he says, look at this very shiny big nickel. I'll trade you every shiny nickel for every little dime you have in your pocket. And that's what he did. He says, you know, you all remind me of that. You say you're giving me tax cuts, so you're raising sales tax, but saying you're cutting on income tax. But I can't help but think, who are you really cutting it on? Cutting it on the wealthy. You're cutting $38 million for the coal companies, but you're raising my taxes in order to do tax cuts for the wealthy and the coal companies. Let me tell you something, Mr. President. We may sit down in here in this chamber and hear our voices echo off this marble and talk to ourselves, but I'm telling you what, we're not duping the people of West Virginia. They know exactly what we're doing here. You think that you're providing an income tax while you're income tax break while you're raising their sales tax. They know what you're doing. They know you're taking really a dime from their pocket and giving them a shiny nickel. Mr. President, we got to stop this nonsense. We have to deal with the budget. Let's keep it simple. Let's deal with the budget, and I'm all for looking at our tax structure in a comprehensive manner and make tax reforms to modernize our tax structure. But to sit here and be dishonest to the people of West Virginia by saying that we're really giving you a tax break when overall we're taking more out of their pocket in order to help the wealthy and the coal companies to give them breaks is just not selling, Mr. President. I'm just going to tell you, it's not selling back in my area. People know exactly what we're doing, and you're right, the senior from the senior senator from the 15th, people are sick and tired of it, and they're sick and tired of being duped and fooled. Thank you.
Further discussion, the senator from the 8th, senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. A lot has been said, and I believe everybody who speaks believes what they say, but the truth is, sometimes you can believe things which aren't true. I'll tell you who's being duped. Those people who say this is a tax break for the rich, I heard it twice over there. It's just not true. It's a farce. You can say it all day long, but that doesn't make it true. Look at the numbers. The numbers are weighted towards middle and lower class incomes. That's where they're weighted. And you talk about the coal industry. Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather those mines close and put those miners out of work? Because that's the option. When the price of coal is what it is, when the price of coal is lower than the cost to mine it, you have two options. You can close those mines, send people home, or you can keep them working if we can give them a 50-cent break on that tax. The governor's right, and when times are good and the price of coal goes up, they ought to pay more. That's what the schedule says. I don't know, honestly, how you can say this is a tax cut for the wealthy. It's just not true. It's just not true. Sure, the wealthy will get a break, but proportionately, the lower brackets get more of a break, nearly 40%, and like 15% at the higher brackets. Now, you can find a study to say anything you want it to say. I've looked and done these numbers myself. That's what they are. Well, let me tell you what the people of West Virginia are watching and what they're sick and tired of. They're sick and tired of the same old, same old. And what I get is, you all are fine as long as we can just raise another tax, cover the deficit, raise another tax. Well, which one are you going to raise next year? Which one are you going to raise this year? I tell you what the people of West Virginia want. They want us to live within our means. Now, obviously, there are some services that we have to continue to provide. It's up to us to decide what's essential and what isn't. I contend we're doing lots of things in this state that aren't essential. And that's what the people are sick and tired of. Let's do something differently. We've tried to put in safety nets. The senator from Marion is right. That's what we've tried to do. Well, you know, the real contention is, do we continue to do what we've done before? I've said it before, stick our thumb in the dike until the water starts penetrating the area where we've stuck our thumb and the hole gets bigger and the flow gets bigger. And yes, that's also part of the problem. We didn't have the guts to cut budget. And by the way, the senator from Harrison says we've cut this government. Well, how come our budget is greater this year than it was last year if we've cut it? We haven't cut it. The budget 20 years ago was $1.9 billion, I think, give or take. And the population was substantially greater than it is today. Today it's 3 billion dollars with a lower population. I can't figure that out. Anybody have a good answer for that? Things cost more. Inflation. You put inflation in there, and you'll still find we're spending more real dollars today than we were then. That's what people are sick and tired of. They're sick and tired of us just keeping people on the payroll to fill a seat. But we can't fix that in 60 days here. until we have a governor who yesterday I thought spoke eloquently to our conferees. I thought he spoke eloquently. And one of the things he said was, we're afraid of the boogeyman. And that's what I'm hearing over here this morning. The boogeyman's after us. Well, we have to do something different, folks. Maybe this isn't the right thing. And I would tell you this, you're saying we ought to have a special session to talk about tax reform. And my opinion is we could do such a special session. We've been working on this for 18 months, by the way. We could have a special session, but you know what I believe would happen? Unless we keep spending just what we're spending or raising some more taxes, we couldn't get people on board with that either. Mr. President, people are fed up, but they're fed up with the status quo. It's time for us to do something different. Thanks.
Further remarks? Further remarks? Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I reluctantly want to continue this bantering back and forth, and it wasn't my intention when I stood up. I just want some resolve with this thing, and everybody's worked extremely hard. There's no question about it. You know, a lot of the initiatives that we've done in the past have been initiated by the Republican Party. You know, we looked at the business taxes, our B&O taxes, our corporate net. You know, you held our feet to the fire and we reduced them. We reduced all those, we eliminated some and reduced the corporate net. And we put our state in a situation where we're 16, 17, 18 in business taxes. And at that time, we held a high prospect that if we had a state that was business friendly, that they would come. And so we bought into that theory. We reduced those taxes. And it was much from your effort that we bought on and reduced them. We've reduced the food tax. Well, maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe that's debatable. We've been so many times on both sides of that issue that I can't even comprehend it anymore. But we do our job. And when we're telling the folks out there that we're going to give them a break, that we're going to reduce the income tax and have a higher consumer sales tax, you know, it is a flush. I mean, you're down $500 million at the beginning of the session. The governor sets new revenue estimates. You know, now we're $300 million. Well, you know, I've seen so many figures that we're just swimming in numbers. But when you do the numbers, and we've asked the governor's office, just crunch the numbers and give us something that we can go back and tell our constituents, we are saving you money. You know, we are going in the right direction. But we continue to get an estimate on the reduction of the consumer or the personal income tax of 20%. And the savings are minimal to folks that are on the lower income, in the middle income, and the folks at the higher income bracket get $3,000, $4,000. You know, you're looking so far into the future that we can't comprehend that. But if we've agreed, and you all have conceded, you started out with 20% in the first year, you've gone down to 15%, you're now at 7%. And so we've taken the 7% figures and we've crunched them. And when we look at the 7% figures and taking all the taxes into consideration, the cell phone tax, gasoline tax, and things of that sort, you know, the person out there, the governor talks about the grass cutter that makes $42,000. Well, they may make that at the Greenbrier, but I don't think they're making that out there in the state of West Virginia. They're making $42,000. They're making minimum wage. So let's look at that minimum wage guy out there. He may make $18,000, $20,000 a year, depending. And when we flush it all out, and you take the 7%, not the 20, When you take the 7%, I'm going back and tell my grass cutters in Marion County, buddy, I've saved you $5.22. That won't get you a meal at McDonald's. I don't know how I can hang my hat on that. And then we've crunched it down to a guy that makes even more, and proportionally the numbers get a little bigger. You know, you go from $5 to $10, and then when you go up around $25,000, you know, this guy making $25,000, we're saving him $5, or he's making $5.75. But when you look at that guy that makes $50,000 out there, you know, those are the folks, those are the hard-working middle-class people. He's going to lose $162 the first year. And it exponentially works that way. You know, the people that we're trying to help, we think the people, the lower income, the middle income, or the folks, if you can put $500-600 in their pocket, they're going out there and they're going to spend it. You put $2,000 in a guy that makes $300,000, he's going to invest it. He's maxed out with things he can buy. But the guy out there, we were in a governor's office the other day, and I happened to look out the window and I saw a guy in a boat out there, several people in a boat. And those are the folks that have means, decent jobs to buy the toys that they need, the ATVs, the boats, the things of that sort. Those are the folks that are going to put money back into your economy. They're going to spend the money. But that guy out there in that boat, we're going to eliminate his income tax, and we're going to raise his consumer sales tax. When he goes out and buys new life jackets for his boat, he's going to say, man, what's this extra cost? And Lord, help him if he decides that, you know, his Johnson 50 horsepower motor isn't powerful enough. He's going to buy a Mercury 300 horsepower. He's going out there and buy a new boat. And what's he going to do? Man, he's going to see that bill to the state of West Virginia on his income tax, and he's going to say, man, how's these guys helping me? So I just think that the timing is not right. We've reduced taxes, mostly because the Republican Party has emphasized we make a business-friendly state, and we've done that. I mean, you can't argue with the statistics. You know, you can't argue with numbers. And that's why we put a lot of emphasis on numbers. We've crunched every number there is. We're looking at the out years. You know, what happens next year? You come in here with a $250 million hole in your budget. In an election year, it's going to be worse than it is now. You know, all we're saying is delay this implementation of the or the personal income tax for 1 year. Let's try to stabilize this economy. You know, when Kansas got into this mode, everybody bought in. It was a great idea. They had an excess of general revenue. They had money that, you know, they could spend, and they thought, man, we're going to give the people of Kansas a tax break. Well, they did that. You know what they did? They just passed the highest rate of taxes in the state of Kansas this year to get well. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And we're playing this Russian roulette game, and we're hoping that things happen. If it does, if the governor's road program goes into place and we get all those jobs, the economy booms, we build highways, we've got the business tax structure to attract businesses from out of state. You know, they'll come in. Then as this economy grows and we can measure it as it grows, we can eliminate the income tax. We can give something back to the people of West Virginia. But it's all about timing, and now is not the right time to play Russian roulette.
The senior senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, I certainly did not come in here to make any comments today, but I just wanted to say a couple things. Obviously, I've been somewhat in the middle of this, but I'd like to look back for a minute, because as I hear comments like, you know, we're the worst and all that, I just want to take you back to 1994 when I was elected. The senator from Oregon was already here. You weren't here yet. And let me tell you what the reality was back then. We had a workers' compensation system that was on its way to fiscal disaster. We had a teachers' retirement system that was funded at about 9%. There was a $4 billion unfunded obligation. And we knew we had something else that actuarially was problematic, but nobody was looking at it closely, and that was what you call the OPEB liability, the expense of our after you retire benefits. Those problems existed. Now, a couple years before I got there, in the Caperton era, taxes were increased. I remember that well. Archmore was defeated. Gaston came in, hauled people into a special session. Maybe some of you were hauled into it. And you voted to increase the food tax and different taxes. I don't remember all. That is the last time that those taxes were increased. I've voted in my 23 years here for 3 tax increases. Tobacco tax, 3 times. I remember in the Underwood years it was smokeless tobacco tax. But I just want to make this point that over time, and gentlemen mentioned it, we had, by the way, those of you who weren't here, this building was full of opposition when in 1995, I think it was, we voted to fix workers' comp. I couldn't get to my office. It was a 9-hour floor session in the House. There was a lot of animosity, and there was a lot of problems going forward. And that first fix was basically set aside by the courts. The second fix was done. A lot of you were here. You were here, and we fixed that. Now, so one of the things that we did was we privatized the workers' compensation system, and we did it following making sure that the mistakes made by Nevada were not made by us. I think we were successful. Brick Street was launched. I don't know how many millionaires we created that were former state employees and went to work for Brick Street. The private sector now sells that product. People make a lot of money. What a success that was. We went from a monolithic system to privatization, and we're successful at it. There was put in place a plan to pay down that pension obligation. When the Attorney General won the tobacco settlement case, all that money was securitized, and $800 million was dumped into the teachers' retirement system. Our teachers' retirement system, we made a commitment to it. It's now funded. Look at Kentucky. Their retirement system's 35% funded. They have an exploding problem over there. We don't. We took on the OPEB liability problem and solved it. And so even though there are negative comments about our state, I would say this: the bond rating agencies in New York took notice of the fiscal responsibility of this state and raised our bond rating. Now, recently, they don't like what they see. Now, I think where some of my Republican friends think would they think where I'm going to go, or maybe somebody. All I'm going to say about this current debate is, and I have reached the point of, here is what I'd like to see come out of however it happens, that somebody outside of this state would look at us and say that whatever you did was a tax code that created a structurally sound budget for the foreseeable future, however you do it. Because in that way, now think of it, we in West Virginia have solved 3 significant fiscal problems. Something else I would mention to anybody who would listen is, was not reported on, but we did significant retirement plan. Senator from the 8th introduced the bill 2 or 3 years ago, saved $55 million in actuarial cost. We've been recognized by the Pew Foundation in Washington. We heard this in a committee meeting as one of the best states in terms of how we manage our pension money. So though we may be 50th in a bunch of things, I would like to say that we are, we've done some responsible things. And what has troubled me, and this is how I've gotten a little trouble with some of my friends, is that I want a tax plan that simply provides for a structurally sound budget. And here's the reason. Our bond rating will come back and the business community will respond positively to that. Now, they may respond positively to these other things, and I'm going to be here. I voted for this tax reform thing. But that's where I'm coming from. So when you get down in the details of all of it, it may work. The governor's the one that's actually proposing this, and he sees a positive outcome. I just hope that however it comes out, that we can walk away and say, we've done something for our citizens, those who want to stimulate the economy a little more, it works for them, or whatever. But I just think, I find it personally sad that people can't see what I'm going to say. We have solved 3 fiscal problems in the last 20 years. Huge problems. You took them on. It was bipartisan. One thing I failed to mention was back in the 90s, we were forced to invest in the bond market only. Remember that? We had to have a constitutional amendment that we fought for and got through in the good times. Think of the disaster that would have been if that hadn't happened. So I'm just simply saying that in my tenure here and the tenure of my fellow senator and you, Mr. President, let's not lose the perspective that some responsible actions have been taken, and we've dealt with basically the 4 problems that most states face right now positively, and we've just got one last little problem that's irritating us when the extractive industry revenues went down. And that's where I'm coming from, and I've decided that I'll be happy, but I do think you don't want a maybe in this plan, or at least minimize the maybe. There's always a maybe. You want some solid reason why you're doing it, and that going forward you have a structurally sound budget. Now, I have my ideas about how you would do that, and others have their ideas about how they would do that, but that's kind of what I'm looking for in this process going forward, Mr. President. And I think that's fair. I think I represent what the public's telling me and the citizens of my district have been telling me they want to see happen. So I didn't want to let the moment go by before I just made, that's where I'm coming from. We've done some great things. This one last problem of the 4, that if we can solve it, our bond rating will go up again, and when we sell those road bonds, we'll get a little more money for them. So that's my view, Mr. President.
Further remarks? Further remarks? Anyone? Senator from Harrison County.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the remarks from the senator from Putnam, Marion, and Kanawha be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Further remarks? Miscellaneous? Further remarks? Miscellaneous business, the senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until 2 p.m.
Subject to announcements, the senator from Ohio moves that the Senate stand in recess until 2 p.m. Are there announcements? The senator from Ohio County.
By way of announcement, just kind of an update for all the members. Obviously, we passed a resolution here this morning to extend the conference committee. The House is going into their session at 1 p.m. today, and expect them to do the same, but we don't want to act until we have certainty that they've done that. So we'll be coming back at that point just to be sure that the House has adopted the same resolution.
Further announcements? Not the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand in recess until 2 p.m. today? All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the Senate in recess until 2 p.m. today.